This is the talk show that takes a no-holds-barred approach to politics, where truth and integrity are the standard and the Constitution honored. From Renaissance Studios, this is Champion News Talk Radio.
Good morning and welcome to another great edition of Champion News Talk Radio. We are brought to you by championnews.net, and we are your choice for the conservative voice. This is Carol Parisi. Today our founder, Jack Roser, and myself have a very special guest with us, Mr. Rick Pere. And Jack, how are you this morning? We got Rick Pere with us today.
Well, that's the important thing. I'm here all the time. We have a very special guy with a very special history. A knowledge of a growing threat to our country. I've done a little reading on the Quran and radical Islam, and in my own mind and meager knowledge, I see it as a big threat, especially when our president has spent his early years deeply into Islam and has done strange things that question his loyalty to the kind of America we have all believed in. That's an awful thing to be saying here, and I realize it. And I don't know the basis. I know some of the basis, but I hesitate to condemn our president to that degree. But we've got things going on in the world with these radical Islamic people that seems to be getting deeper and deeper. And I understand, Rick, that you were in special ops.
Yep.
38 years in the United States Army, including special operations.
You spent a good deal of time embedded with the people in Afghanistan?
Afghanistan and Iraq.
So you aren't just a casual reader of books like I am.
Well,
I lived with them.
I did not properly introduce you, Rick. You are a retired military special ops person. You are an expert on radical Islam, and you are a personal firearms instructor. So Rick actually knows a ton and lived with all of these folks in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Both countries.
Rick, was the fact that you lived embedded in Afghanistan, that's a strange experience to have. Nobody I know has ever done that. That sounds hazardous and different.
It's extremely different from anything you can imagine here in the United States. It's an experience I wouldn't trade for anything I've ever done. I've never regretted 1 second of my time on the ground in Afghanistan or Iraq. I learned a lot, not only just being embedded with them. The country itself was absolutely magnificent. Afghanistan.
Would you speak just a little bit loud?
Afghanistan is just absolutely magnificent in terms of its scenery, its people, its culture, its background, its history, its flora, its fauna. It's just a phenomenal environment in which to work, visit, and learn about other people.
But Rick, you know what? Radical Islam.
This is a strange contrast. They say, talk about foreign lands, land of contrast. You're certainly bringing out a part of Afghanistan that we don't hear about. We hear about the strangeness of it, but not this kind of dignity you're talking about.
Now, most people don't understand that Afghanistan topography, landforms, there are certain areas of Afghanistan where it's just like here in the United States.
It's just like what?
Here in the United States.
Yeah.
There are certain areas like in eastern Afghanistan where they have lime orchards, where they have sugarcane fields. In northern Afghanistan, they hunt and they fish and they have lands similar to ours up there. But most of the country is desert in certain other areas, and the people have to live and exist within those environments.
Bedouins, right?
No, there are Bedouins in Afghanistan, but there are 7 different tribes of people living in Afghanistan and working in Afghanistan. And mostly they're at war with one another, not only just the Taliban. But there's a lot of inter-tribal prejudice and more loyalty
Is
to
this
the family.
arrived to the level of the Martins and the Coys?
Actually, in some manners, it does. In some ways, it does. There are tribal factions and frictions. There are also warlords. There's also a very, very large criminal element in Afghanistan. So it's not just the Taliban that the Western forces are fighting, but it's also the incursion by warlords and by rebels in countryside. And Al-Qaeda is still there. They have not been run out of Afghanistan.
You've had interesting experiences in a little time I've talked to you here. Beyond Afghanistan, there seems to be what's going on in Afghanistan is just a fraction of the big Islamic radical movement that is organizing the Middle East and much of the world.
It's all over the world. People don't understand, and most American people have not learned to connect the dots yet. Neither has our government. These are not separate wars. Radical fundamentalist Muslims, the Islamic jihadists, view these different attacks as separate fronts in the war against the West.
But Rick, are you saying all Muslims are part of this?
No.
Let me ask you a fundamental question. There are Islamic people that go to their church, and there doesn't seem to be any problem with them except maybe Sharia law doesn't seem so warlike, but it certainly seems way out of date to any American concept, and certainly is totally opposite the life of the female part of our existence, where women have occupied such a position of importance in America, and I think God bless them. I've worked with a lot of dynamite women, certainly in politics, but how come the women in this country aren't getting upset about being shoved into the background or shoved into a sack, pretty much literally?
I think most American women don't really understand the true concept and nature of Islam in countries such as Somalia, such as Sudan, such as Mali,
I don't think
such
most
as in
of us
Afghanistan.
Americans.
Most Americans don't understand.
I'm a reader, so I know a little bit from a couple of books I've read, and I've checked them into the Quran. So I've had an intellectual kind of a slight interest in it. Not like you. You lived in this.
Well, the problem is that Americans believe the Quran is the only book that exists in terms of the Quran.
And don't say a word against it. Don't burn one.
Well, it's more important than that. Islam is their life. They live it. They eat it. They breathe it. It is their life. It is who they are. It is what they are.
How many times a day do they leave?
Well, they have to pray 5 times a day. They're given only a 20-minute window within those 5 times. They can pray at least three times a day. Most people who are mainstream Muslims, they'll pray 5 times a day. Very fastidious, very clean.
Anything that requires that much indoctrination each day has very damn little appeal on its own.
Well,
so
that's to a lot of people in the Christian world. But
is it a ritualistic prayer, or is it?
It's very highly stylized. It's ritualistic. It comes straight out of the Quran.
Okay.
Quran itself. Okay. But most people.
Pray when I'm in traffic.
But most people don't.
I pray probably more than 5 times a day.
No, I'm an engineer. It took 4 years of training to get all of the big ideas and tough stuff into my head, and that's true of other occupations or beliefs or Christianity or anything else. But something that has to be reinforced 5 times every day of your life, tells me it is not a compelling reason. How the hell do they get people to kneel down on a mat 5 times a day and get themselves conditioned to go on and to cut the head off?
Well, now we're not.
Agree
well,
with them.
we're talking. It's not so much disagreement. We're only talking about 15% of the entire Muslim population, and a lot of people in America and in the Western world don't understand Islam has been hijacked by radical fundamentalist Islam. Okay, Muslims are in just as great a jeopardy as the American West and as British West, United Kingdom, the other Western countries. But you're talking about a population of 15% that's larger than the United States population.
Okay, so what we're talking about is the difference between the radical fundamentalists
Yes.
and your peace-loving.
Well, you have five
spiritual
different.
Muslims.
The divisions of Islam are Sunni, Shia, Wahhabi, Sufi. Okay, those are your main divisions. Okay, the Sunni and the Shia are at war with one another. Okay, and they've always been fighting with one another for it's a tribal kind of a factional thing. Your spiritual Muslims are your Sufis. Okay, we cannot equate them to anybody else but a spiritual individual. Okay, but the problem is that we have 15% of the Muslim population, which is larger than the entire population of the United States, that's at war with the West.
You know what? When we come back, we're going to come back after the break. We're going to hear more about the differentiation between radical Islam, what the danger is to America, and a little bit about Benghazi. Stay with us. Don't go away. This is a great show.